Hello and welcome everybody, I'm One Proper Varian, and today Victoria 3 announced its expansion pass to the timeline and the content. In this video I will tell you everything that you need to know, I'll give you some opinions, and I would be very happy if you discussed it in the comments as well, because well, there is a lot that this game can do, and I want to know whether you are happy with what it is doing. Now, all that aside, let's just jump straight in and take a look at this graphic right here where we can learn when what releases. First of all, the instant unlock, so that you can get this right now, are the trade ships bonus pack. I believe they are 3 bonus ships. It's pretty much what you get these days when it comes to the expansion passes by Paradox. I don't know whether other games are doing it as well, but CK3 always gives you a bunch of crowns, maybe some clothing, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's pretty much what is happening. Then on the 17th of June, and let me see, yeah, we can zoom in here actually, we're getting Charters of Commerce, which is the mechanics pack. It should be noted that in this actual season pass, in this expansion pass, there is no major expansion. Instead, the mechanics pack is the very mechanics heavy pack, and then other than that we get immersion packs. I find this interesting. We're gonna see how it goes. Honestly, the DLC model is changing and changing and changing for Paradox. Whether this is good or bad is something that we can't really see directly. Now, when it comes to the mechanics here and what this is, I think there's a pretty good reason to be excited for it. We're gonna go over this, of course, as we go. Then in Q3, so the third quarter, we have National Awakening. It's not written here, but I can tell you that this immersion pack is about the Balkans, and indeed actually about Austria and Austria-Hungary and so on and so forth. Which I think is actually really good choice for content if you ask me, because yeah, we're looking at something that needs to have content, you know, World War I, nudge nudge, wink wink, all that kind of stuff. It's gonna be in here, and we're gonna discuss this, of course, as we go as well. Then in Q4 you also get Songs of the Homeland, which is a music pack. Cool, fine, it's a music pack. I personally was hoping not for a music pack, but rather for seasons, but I think I said this in the past as well. Hey, these are always kind of in there. Q4, the other one that you get in that same quarter, is Iberian Twilight. There it is. This is also an immersion pack, and it is centered on the Iberian Peninsula. There are some open questions there, and I think we're gonna start just by reading through the announcement post that we have here. So, happy Monday, Victorians. The time has come. Last week we announced Expansion Pass 2. Well, we showed you the logo and a blurry square. Thank you for the huge amount of responses, discussion, hype, and speculation about what is in the pass. Some people thought the barrel was for brewing, the flag for flag customization, and many more interesting ideas. Thank you for them all. We had a lot of fun following your discussions. But today we shall give you a quick tour of the Expansion Pass. First of all, a proper visit to our first upcoming release, and the barrel in the Expansion Pass 2 logo. You can check this video out yourself, of course. It is directly linked here in the post, and the post is linked in the description. It tells this tale basically of a good being transported, and then over here we have John Victoria. This is John Victoria right there, bringing some goods into this location. This whole trailer is, of course, about Charters of Commerce, so the mechanics pack that comes out in June. How you were talking about this, and I was saying I think April is too early, just, you know, they didn't seem ready for it at the time. May was where I would have liked to see this, but June, hey, it's June. I think there are significantly worse dates. I am really excited about the content, and I think ultimately that is what matters. Let's take a look at Charters of Commerce. I do like the art. We have, you know, basically trade going on right here. We see some trade charters. We see these cigars, of course, where they belong. And then we see some elephant tusks right there as, you know, beneficial property to be sold. Welcome to Charters of Commerce, a mechanics pack focused on building trade, companies, and negotiating treaties with other nations. Control world trade through market domination, expand companies to new horizons, and strong-arm countries into unequal treaties. Use the power of commerce to bend other nations to your will, peacefully or by force. Create monopolies to secure critical industries, keeping foreign investors in check. Ultimately, prove your mettle and produce unique prestige goods to make your brands known worldwide. This is a pretty wide characterization. We already know that trade is changing massively, and since trade is automated and happens on a local level, if you recall, makes a lot of sense actually that you can tie companies into this. They talked at the time when they brought out companies as a feature, and I still personally believe that they are good at what they do, which is making it so that you have a lower opportunity cost, or rather a better production capability of certain goods, so that everybody specializes. I think that is good. But companies are a much more interesting thing, right? A much more interesting concept. They said at the time when they introduced it, we want to work through this, we want to make it more interesting as we go. And this seems to be what they did right here. Let's take a look at this. You can have company charters. Grant special charters to companies, giving them a range of special privileges. Trade charters lets companies trade their goods on the world market. So we already talked about this. This is the world market, and companies will now participate as independent actors. I really like that. Investment charters allow establishment of regional headquarters that exploit the target coffers. Interesting. So we can grant not just to countries the right to invest in us, but to companies, which means this could maybe be forced on us, you know, in an unequal treaty, or maybe it is something that we do willingly because we need that money, further making companies into actors. That is literally what we wanted. Colony charters make it possible for a company to run a colonial region on their own, turning them into a country in the process. Interesting, so they are expanding on this and actually going the furthest here, I guess, you know, when it comes to colonies, of course, in Africa, but I have to hope that we can also do this, you know, maybe with a couple of countries in South America that produce bananas, that kind of stuff. But the idea here being, yet again, companies become actors. Industry charters grants companies the ability to expand into producing other goods. This one is super interesting because right now, obviously, that is not at all what you do with them. You get them for the bonus they give, and that is all you do here. Beyond this, monopolies boost the efficiency of selected buildings and grant your companies an exclusive right to certain industries, ensuring their dominance. We are thinking here, I think, of, for example, the Russians. I think the Chinese also had a lot. I mean, every company had a lot like this. This seems like we can push other people out of the market. My big question actually is, oh, that is interesting. Is this something you can only do in your own country, or can I force a monopoly of a certain good for my own company in another country? Like I said, there are a lot of questions to the features here, but fundamentally all of this sounds really neat. Then, diplomatic treaties. Negotiate fair or unequal arrangements with other countries. Expands upon treaties added in update 1.9. So you can see here we're getting free treaty updates already and negotiating them. So right now, if you think about it, every single treaty, quote unquote, is basically just you having a long-term individual relationship with a country. That relationship is independent of any other treaty. Obviously, how they feel about you depends on whether you already have treaties with them and so on and so forth, but fundamentally they're independent. Are we getting comprehensive treaties? Are we getting multilateral treaties? Is it all bilateral? Is it multilateral? How deep does it go? Can we do something like, for example, the defensive pacts that the North German Federation had with the South Germans? Can we do something like a one-sided guarantee? Man, there are a lot of questions that I have here, and if they nail this, it would be amazing. Because diplomacy needs something like this. This is the thing that I'm super curious about. All of this is obvious to me. We're turning companies into actors. Reasonable. This right here, what are we talking about? How deep does it go? Don't get your hopes up too high, okay? Let's play this realistic here. Next, prestige goods. Successful companies can produce higher quality goods, such as champagne, as an advanced variant of wine. Oh, they're introducing... that's interesting. So they're introducing excellent variants, better variants of goods that I have to assume fill those needs better, and with which you can tie people even more to your company. If your company is the only one producing this worldwide, you have an even bigger market edge than if you just produce wine really well. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting for balance purposes. The one thing that I'm missing here, but I would assume that if it is in the game, then it won't be in the DLC because it would be a fundamental thing. Will companies properly participate in politics? That is the big question that isn't in here at all, but let me tell you right now that fundamentally I am super excited for this content. I think this is content that I was looking for, that the majority of players was looking for. An expansion into diplomacy and trade is absolutely magnificent, hopefully making it so that, again, autarky becomes less and less common, unless you do a world blobbing playthrough, of course, which, hey, if you do that, fine. But if you do a regular playthrough, right, trade, this is the period of trade, free trade, getting rid of trade kind of barriers, that kind of stuff, whether by force or consensual. Let's see whether this can do what it promises to do. Alongside Charters of Commerce, we will be releasing free update 1.9 that will focus on some of the areas we mentioned back in January with DevDairy 142, with a full update including world market with autonomous trade, okay, diplomatic treaties, negotiate with other nations to truly make the best deal for you, with new additions such as transit rights. We heard about that as well for the, it's related to the world market basically. Frontline and military quality of life improvement, improving front splitting, teleportation and more. I have to pray. We all have to pray, I think. Straits and blockades. Blockade key locations to control access for military or trade purposes. I can already tell you, I am really happy with the content direction we're seeing here. This is what I wanted to see content-wise. But there's one thing that is notably absent, and that is a proper working through of navies. I made a long pitch video for this, you can watch it. I'm not going to go through all of it again, but I did that. And that is missing here, outside of blockading key locations to control access for military or trade purposes. Nonetheless, if this makes it so that my troops can't pass through you, for example, right, to reach another theater, that would be awesome. It wouldn't change all of my criticisms for the Navy, but it would be so much better already. Still a long way to go. I don't really want to put kind of a makeup on a pig here, right? But the idea being that that would be a good step. Now, boats other than this and other than in the pre-order pack are absent, but in general, I gotta tell you, I'm very excited for Charters of Commerce. That looks really good. Now, you may be asking, what is a mechanic pack? It is a pack aimed to provide mechanical immersion at a lower price than an expansion due to lower focus on the narrative content. So, where, for example, the Sphere of Influence, I think it was called, where that had a lot of narrative content related to the great game, this is completely absent here, or at least mostly absent. What we are getting is big mechanics and some flavor, instead of big mechanics and big flavor. I kind of like this. I kind of like that weight, to be honest with you. We're going to see this with the immersion packs later as well, but that is interesting. This is a bit of an experiment on our end, as we want to make it possible for you to receive both new mechanics as well as narrative content when purchasing an expansion pass, as you would with an expansion pack. Charters of Commerce and Update 1.9 will be releasing June 17th for $19.99. Where are we these days with expansion packs? I think full expansion packs, are they $29.99? Or are they $25.99? It's cheaper, that much is clear. Whether it's going to be worth the money is obviously up to you. This is the very classic Paradox model here. At this point, we're looking at big, substantial free updates, then DLCs on top of this, and if you buy the expansion pass, it will be cheaper yet. I think the expansion pass here is $35.97. There you go. What an art price. But okay, $35.97. That is the full price for the entire year's worth of content. Let's talk about this actually right now. So we're getting this on the 17th of June. I think I said everything. I like companies becoming actors. I like the rework of the autonomous world market. That stuff looks really good. I hope that companies really become interesting, including politics, although they didn't say anything with this regard. And I hope that the military gets less annoying. That's really the best bet that we have right now. Now, Expansion Pass 2, we already talked about what it includes. You will save 20% if you purchase it through the Expansion Pass. That will be $35.97, so I think 20%, if only I could do math, $45 or something? I don't know. I didn't do the math right now, okay? But you're saving money there, obviously, as it is. Interesting to me that they are doing this late, quote-unquote, into the year. The first piece of content here that isn't the pre-unlock will come out in late Q2, whereas, for example, for CK3, of course, we're seeing it in April, so next month, when it comes to the very first DLC of that pack, but ultimately it all comes out in 2025, we know this, so there you go. Fair enough. Trade ships. Let's talk about them for just 1 second. You get 3 ships. I believe that is all that we're getting here, right? Or at least those are the ones that I see here. A Qing junk in a dapper yellow, then the Marmara in Ottoman Empire colors with a rather dashing red and white. So you get those in your colors. The sails are in your colors. And your vessels, of course, can also have these. A dhow clad in midnight sails. Looks good. Looks sweet. I'll be honest with you, I never really care for these insta unlocks, but I get why they're there. I don't really hold it against Paradox. This is like the least egregious thing when it comes to the expansion passes, in my mind anyway. Having an insta unlock that is literally just visuals, the least worst thing. I'm not a fan of instant unlocks, I think, in general, or on entirely season pass related unlocks, but I think this is like the least intrusive. And if I'm not wrong, the moment you own all of the DLC anyway, you can just claim the insta unlock for free if you then pick up the free expansion pass, which will be free because you own everything in it. But yeah, so there you go. Pretty inoffensive if you ask me. National Awakening. Cool, let's see. Our next immersion pack, releasing in Q3 2025, is National Awakening, focusing on the century of national struggles in Central Europe and the Balkans. Will Austria survive its internal political and national struggles? And how will they fare with the swell of national identities? Austrian internal content with Clemens von Metternich. Will Clemens von Metternich keep the crumbling empire together, or will nationalist forces break it apart? Is there a future for all the different ethnicities under Habsburg's absolute rule, or maybe it's time for a more federationist state? So it looks like we can have the Danubian Federation here. Hungarian flavor. Determine the place of the proud Hungarian nation within or without the empire. Powder keg of Europe. Engage with intricate narrative content surrounding the emerging Balkan states struggling for independence and power. New southern states from Yugoslavia or Illyria, carving out their borders and national outlines as you please. then historic characters, join as a whole cast of bigger-than-life figures who helped shape the outline of Austria and the Balkans. New 2D art, including new map and UI skin, as well as event images. I am hoping that we are seeing content that is similar to the Brazilian content, okay? I like the Brazilian content because of how long-term it is. I think in its initial release, the balancing wasn't necessarily great. I will tell you that in the initial version, of course, of the French content, I hated the French content in the initial scope or in the initial way that it was implemented. That has been changed. I never made a video on this, but the French content from the French Immersion DLC is actually really nice now, at least last time I played it. I am hoping more of those two rather than, for example, what we have in the Indian content or what we have in the Sphere of Influence content, because the Brazilian content will accompany for a very, very long time. Now, from the looks of it, as we know, the independence for the most Balkan states and the full, of course, exclusion of the Ottomans in the Balkans outside of Istanbul and Thrace happened in 1912, I believe, right? That was when the Second Balkans War happened. So this seems like content that should keep you busy for the entirety of the game. That is what I want out of this. That is really important to me. Victoria 3 is the one game in the Paradox catalog where you might actually hit the end game very frequently. That is at least how it is for me. And with that in mind, the later your gameplay experience becomes generic by virtue of you running out of content, the better. From the looks of it, it sounds very front-focused, of course. 1848 is the big year for the Austrians, but then we go into Yugoslavia, we go into, of course, the independence of the other Balkan states, and we're talking about 1912, 1920, right? So I mostly hope that it goes primarily into the Brazilian direction just because of how long-term that content was. Now, in general, huge fan that we are seeing content for the Balkans and Austria because of how important that area is for Europe to go into an interesting direction. It sucks every time that Italy doesn't form. It sucks every time that Austria and the Ottomans and the Russians never have any problems with their minorities, with their suppressed cultures. We need to see that. We need to get that. And I'm hoping to see this here. I wonder what we can see in the dynamics there, right? Like how they implement this. But that's something for Q3 2025. It's still quite some way to go. I like that this is the topic of this immersion pack. Then, Songs of the Homeland is music. You can embrace the power of the nation, apparently. There will be modern trends and ambition wins all. Cool. Okay, like I said, I will never be hostile towards these smaller packs. I think they are fine. It's completely reasonable that you have people that, you know, work on elements of the game that aren't necessarily needed in mechanics or immersion packs. Totally cool, nothing against it. Fingers crossed that we eventually get seasons. I really want just this map to become ever more beautiful. I know that for some it's kind of like, oh, but my computer will explode. If that's the price that I have to pay, your computer exploding, so that my computer can have a beautiful map, then I'm welcoming this. Hey, this is a music pack. It's not what I wanted, but I don't think it's necessarily bad. Then, Iberian Twilight. And so we come to our last part of Expansion Pass 2, also releasing in Q4 2025, like the music pack. Iberian Twilight lets you ponder at the once mighty powers of the Iberian Peninsula, grappling with the clashing ideals of reform or reaction. Can you restore these sleeping giants to their old glory, or shall they fade away into the darkening night? Selected key features. Spain. Carlist wars. Side with the liberals or counter their aspirations through dedicated narrative content. Return of a global empire. Rebuild your once powerful world-spanning empire and face both new and old adversaries as you progress on the path to greatness. I really hope that this plays up the US-Spanish kind of opposition. And additionally, of course, I mean, Spain going into the Americas right now is very, very easy. I hope that it becomes a bit more interesting and maybe impacts how the Hispanic countries behave as well, right? Then the future calls. Modernize your country and institutions, freeing the nations of the shackle of the past. This sounds to me very much like what we have in the Brazilian content, where you have this kind of backdrifting, you know, ultimately, of course, I would like the setup with republicanism, all that kind of stuff in Spain as well. Same thing as for the Balkans and Austria update. I really, really hope that we are looking at content that spans the entire game. Spain, as kind of quiet as it was in the world stage in this period, because its heyday was over, was nonetheless very, very interesting. We have a variety of things happening, and then next comes Portugal. Define who you are, recover from the War of the Two Brothers, and define the vision for the future of your nation. The ultimate trade powerhouse, reaffirm your position as the world-leading trade power, spanning a commercial empire. And then American ambitions. Navigate the diplomatic relations with Brazil, defining your position as a former suzerain of the region. There's one thing absent here for me. We need the pink map. We need Portugal to be able to claim everything between Mozambique and Angola. We desperately, desperately need it. Then other content for this is One Iberia, unite the peninsula under your rule with content and new art, including buildings, unit models, and more. I like this content as well. I am mostly concerned with the Portuguese content, whether we are seeing interesting stuff. I hope that it slots in really nicely into Brazil's content, so that if you play Brazil with the Brazilian DLC, that it slots directly into the content that comes with this DLC for Portugal. Other than that, I'm mostly missing, you know, hey, implementation of their ambitions in Africa, for example. It's not mentioned here. Maybe it's in, maybe it's not in, no idea. But I think this is a great region as well. Listen, the only region that I was hoping for more was either actually the Great Qing. I think the Great Qing, Siam, Japan, and Korea. It's a big, big area, but all of them I would find very interesting because they played such a pivotal role when it comes to resisting European imperialism at the time that would make it very interesting to play as them, but also, of course, in Europe. And the other thing for me here is that I kind of would have preferred, I guess, Germany, right? I mean, okay, kind of biased, I guess. But I would have preferred Germany because of how important it is that Germany forms and that Germany is at least interesting, even if it doesn't form, right? Nonetheless, this is, after those picks, probably one of my favorite picks. I really, really want to see these countries be more interesting. I want their history better represented. And of course, this would have a massive impact on the Americas, on potentially other colonies like the Philippines. Let's hope that it's good again. I hope that it spans the entire game. Now, in both cases, I want to say that I hope that they keep sticking with the lessons learned from the initial French DLC for these immersion packs, where, yes, you're doing narrative content, but it should be tied to the material kind of circumstances of your country, right? France does this great now. The kind of competition between the royal houses and stuff makes it so that it really is impacted by how your country and your countrymen are doing. But either way, I'm going to be honest with you, good year. The only thing, and it's a huge one, let's be honest, I'm really missing boats, okay? Where are my military academies? Where are my navies? Where's my proper boat production? All that stuff. Again, I made a big, big video on this. But theme-wise, companies as actors, hello, yes, thank you. National Awakening, the Balkans, and Austria, 100% need this. Songs of the Homeland, cool. Iberian Twilight, immersion pack, hand it over. I like all of the content coming here. I personally am pretty happy, although very cautious about the implementation and how it's ultimately going to pan out. Listen, you gotta be cautious if you're a fan of Victoria 3, okay? Even if you're having fun with it, you gotta be cautious. Either way, for me, this is a pretty good looking expansion pass. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Of course, the big two elephants in the room, which is the actual Navy and which is the Army. For the Army, we're actually going to get some news at the very least come mid-April with Lino and information on frontline improvements coming in the free update 1.9. I myself would of course love some kind of, work in the background related to military academies so that we have doctrines developing there, that kind of stuff. And of course the Navy is a huge topic for me, but either way, I'm really looking forward to this content and I'll leave you right here. Let me know what you think about all of this. I'll see you later, alligator.